back out here at the no-till plot. You can see it looks like we're actually gonna get some rain for once. This is the plot that had a super slow start. It was only a couple inches tall, and some of them were just starting to germinate, like literally 3 weeks to almost a month after planting, because when we broadcasted into all this rye and crushed it down, we didn't get any rain for at least 2 to 3 weeks. So the tilled up plot is the one that came up better, and that one is a little further along. It's starting to turn yellow. We'll take you over there next, but I'm going to show you this one first. For, you know, I think July 4th is when these things were right around ankle high, and for being that small at July 4th, I think they're looking pretty good. They're almost waist high, and I just mowed the trails here yesterday, as you can see, and there was one on the edge here that was kind of just pulled out from the brush hog, and I counted the pods. There was 105. Granted, it was on the end and it was really bushy, but man, unbelievable. Just imagine if these things would have came up when they were supposed to. I'll show you some of these plants here. They're just loaded. I think the soil on this property is some of the best ground I have to plant out of all the properties I plant. This is even better than the stuff in our backyard. It's not as much clay, but it's some good stuff. Let me see if I can. Here's one of them. Now it's a short plant, but look at how much branching is on there. There's probably not 100. There's probably only like maybe 50 on this one, but the one I counted looked more like that. Look at that. That thing's loaded all the way up to the top, and still trying to put on new ones, but these aren't going to do anything. It's too late. This one will be lucky to fill out. It's pretty flat yet. But like I said, if these would have grew and they were supposed to, all of these ones right on top that are just like starting to form, that's never going to turn into anything, but these will be the last ones to fill out. The deer are hitting these pretty good. That whole bean field's starting to turn yellow. So the browse on it right here, not too much really. Here's all the old rye. Let me just pull this one out. This thing looks loaded. Holy smokes. Okay, as you can tell, this is one plant. Now they aren't the tallest beans, but usually tall beans don't mean high yield. I got to start planting my beans at lower populations, I think, even at the farm, where we have issues with a lot of weeds. Out here, weed-free food plots. But we got a lot of Roundup resistant weeds at the farm, so that's why I've been planting higher populations out there. But man, look at that. See how thick the stems are? They're literally about as thick as your fingers when they're planted at lower populations, and they got all this branching. I'm gonna count this up quick and I'll get back with you. Alright, you can see I had to pull it apart to get an accurate count. I mean, it looks like I pulled out 4 or 5 plants here, but this is literally one plant, as you just saw prior to this. And honest to God, this is probably the most beans I've ever counted on one of my plants. And I'm sure this thing had 144 pods. Now that's unbelievable. That's better than probably a lot of farmers' fields. I'm gonna go pull one from the farmer's field out there and see what that is. This plant was probably, where was it? It was like right in here somewhere. So you can see there's a few gaps right here, so it kind of has a lot of room to grow. I'm gonna pull one from a thicker spot right now, and we'll see what that has. It's definitely not gonna have 100 and something. You can see these are still just loaded. Man, I really wish these things grew when they were supposed to. Everything, and there was a few pods on that one that I didn't even count. Like there was some single and 2 bean pod ones that I didn't even count. Otherwise it would have probably been 150. See, right here's one. That's not, let me just pull one of these. Let's go count this one. I mean, you can see it's got good branching like the other one, but just not nearly the size, because it was a little bit growing in a little more crowded area. But that's all right, because every plant there's just more plants there. That's why these ones in these bare spots are just absolutely loaded. All right, so I counted exactly 50 on this one. And like I said, it was definitely going to have less, but you know, there's more plants per acre in that little thick spot. But you can see the difference. These pods are definitely bigger. There's more see that one's got 4 beans in that one. This one's got 4 as well. That one's got 3. The stems are all thicker. This one, these pods are a little smaller actually, and I don't see any with 4. So a lower population like this is definitely better if you don't have problems and issues with weed control. Obviously you can tell we don't have too many weeds, just a few right there. But everything looks healthier on this plant. The pods are bigger, the plant's actually darker if you look at it. It's just had more room to grow, I guess. And these were, like I said, really late planted. Well, they weren't late planted, but they didn't get going until late June. We planted them, I think, early June, and then they germinated right around late June, and then, like I said, by July 4th, they were ankle high. So, pretty pathetic start, but with a pretty good finish. I'm gonna go pluck one off from the farmer's field now. See what that, I'm kind of curious. We'll grab one of these end row ones just to, you know, get a similar test. I'll try and find a big one here, like I did right here. This looks like a good one. Pretty fat stem compared to those ones. Well, that's got a good amount on there too. Okay, I counted 108 on the farmer's one, more than I thought there was going to be on there. But as you can tell, that plant's a little further along. It's just starting to turn yellow. These ones are pretty dark yet out of my plot. What did I say? I think there was like 104, 105, something like that. So I guess both these fields are pretty much growing beans to the soil's full potential. It's same ground, you know, it's right next to that area. Just amazing that our little field, I put no fertilizer on these beans. I don't know what they put on, but obviously those plants, that's not a super early planted bean field. You can see it's just starting to turn yellow. There's quite a bit of green in that field yet. There's other bean fields around that are almost completely yellow. So that wasn't a super early planted field. But obviously planted before this, and they drilled that in. That was all standing winter wheat or rye or some cover crop they had in there, because they had silage corn last year in this field. So they had a cover crop just like I did, but they just drilled right into it and sprayed it. I just no-tilled these and sprayed it. And I think they planted theirs at least a week or 2 before I did mine. So theirs got some good rains, and it was up. Those beans were up when I was planting this food plot. And like I said, these ones were ankle high on July 4th, and they almost did just as good. So that's pretty amazing. I can't be happy with how it turned out. I mean, it could have turned out maybe just a hair better, but in all reality, they pretty much caught right up to the farmer's field. So I'm really happy with how this turned out. Last year we had no-till beans here as well. I did not pluck out and you know, count the pods. I should have. From now on, that's what I'm going to be doing in all my bean update videos like this. It's just a really good test, and you know, to see how good your stuff did. Right here's just one that's loaded right here too. Has a lot more room to grow. I'll take you over to the tilled plot next. Alright, so right behind me here, this is the 1 acre tilled up soybean food plot. You can see these are right at about waist high. The population is definitely a little thicker in here because we obviously got better germination because we tilled these beans in versus the no-till plot. But I'll pluck a plant off here, just a random plant, and we'll count up how many pods there is. Definitely thicker. See, you can tell it's definitely thicker just by the structure of this plant. The other plot had a lot more branching coming off. This one, just by looking at it, probably only has about 30 or 40, but there's a lot more plants per acre out here. Okay, here it is. I just counted 58 pods, so it's a little more than what I thought, because they got good pods all the way up to the top. And like I said, this was planted the same day. This plot was planted the same day as the no-till plot, but this plot came up, you know, a lot faster and looked a lot better the whole year long. But the other plot has pretty much caught up to it and is a little thinner, and those plants have, you know, anywhere from 70 to 150 pods per plant, where this plot's average plant is probably right around 60 like this, because it's a little thicker population, but in all reality they probably yield about the same. I've always wanted to I'll never know exactly what the yield is on my food plots, but it would be cool to know. You know, the only way you're going to tell is if you run a combine through there. So obviously I'm not going to do that. It's a food plot. So I plucked that plant off somewhere right in there, and just look at how loaded this one is. Just out here growing all by itself. Look at how full that is. And the stem on that sucker is like as big as my thumb. So that's what happens when you give them more room to grow. But in here we got good pods everywhere too. If the whole plot was that thin, obviously that would be not a good thing. Look at how much empty space there is. You can see this plot starting to turn yellow. That field over there is completely yellow already. So it's going to be one heck of a food plot. They're actually a little taller right here. They're definitely waist high right there. Yeah, I just can't believe how weed free this is. I mean, this is a first year food plot. In the past, it's mainly just been like this. There was a few other trees in here that we cut out of here, but it's mainly just, it was all goldenrod and a few little trees like this. We left this little patch here because it's like a little island that the deer can bed on at night around this little bit of structure out in the plot. Like I said, there was some weeds, but I did a pretty good spray in here. And the only weeds that made it was a few milkweeds and a few velvets along the edge. There was some water hemp down there. I'll go down there and see what that looks like on that wetter side. The plot drops off a little bit right there, but overall it's very weed free. Looks really good. This is gonna be a killer food plot. Man, too bad the deer, especially in the wintertime, are gonna be coming from a mile away. Nothing beds in here during daytime. They're all coming from way over there. There's another plant on the edge. I'm gonna pick this one off and count it. Looks really good. Holy smokes. That could be a record. It's probably more than the no-till plot, honestly. Look at that. That thing is just heavy too. It's just loaded with moisture. All right. So I counted 141 on all of this. I had to break apart the plant because it's so hard to count, and it's even hard like this. I might have missed a couple or double counted some, so 141 plus or minus probably 5 to 10 pods. And almost all of these have 3 to 4. A lot of these right here all have 4. And then there's only a few down here that had 2. So that's a ton. I thought I'd point this out. This is pretty cool. So this blue purplish stuff is all native, as well as all this sedge grass or whatever. But you can see to the left here, that's what this area looked like before we sprayed it off and worked it up. Canary grass and a little bit of goldenrod. Not very good. Canary grass is invasive, obviously, but look what spraying and killing the canary grass did. It left a lot more, you know, all this native seed was in the ground. And my dad seeded this side of the half. He must have not seeded this side of the food plot. I did the other side. He must have not have thrown too many beans over this far. And you can see this is all native regrowth. And these will obviously grow back next year. But we'll probably just plant right up to the edge. You can see all this grass, like I said, is all native too. You can see there's a ton of that grass here and none of it right over there, where it's just thick canary grass. Just really cool how all you gotta do is spray the ground and work it up. So that's why I might be trying that in a few other areas, and also working up the ground like this encourages more brush and trees to grow in here. Like this is native too, whatever this is. You see there's nothing around it. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. I know I sure did. I love coming back and doing updates on these food plots. It's just so satisfying to see something that you've grown turn out to such unbelievable status. This is literally, I could not ask for a better food plot than what I've grown here. So yeah guys, the corn and soybean videos will be done until the winter time updates, and then it'll all be hunting videos or maybe a trail cam update. So yeah, see you then.